talk about something a little bit different, take a break from new card reveals. Um, they will be back with the Luna Masika deck nearly being fully revealed. There will be like a week that's just like some talk about that deck before card reveals resume for the next decks. But I want to talk about just some possible or official errata today. So we're on the website here, um, and none of this has been updated on Untap. They're just like kind of ideas that I've had. Um, so basically, what I'm thinking is just these erratas. So Ricochet Railgun, I think, will be removing 15 cards instead of 10. 10 just feels like it's a little bit too fast, um, and not necessarily a super significant cost. We're going to see with more text being options um, that all of a sudden, removing cards from your discard pile is a pretty significant cost. So 10 doesn't really feel like it's enough for what Ricochet Railgun does. So that's part of why. And also just to make the new techs really feel like they're worthwhile without being power crept. But I think, not very controversial. Ricochet Railgun's such a powerful card. Debuffing it a little bit, not a big deal. And it just makes it feel a little bit less luck oriented as well, right? Because, sure, now you can get Ricochet Railgun, too much. But I think earlier it felt like, maybe whoever draws more Ricochet Railguns might win. But now it's a bit less like that. Definitely a lot easier to kind of strategize your way around it instead of it being so dominant. I've done some test games with this kind of errata, and Ricochet Railgun really feels like it comes up a lot less, but it still is definitely very relevant, so that's nice. Shield, we're going to try an errata where if you're going to use it from the discard pile, you have to remove 4 cards with it. I think it just contributed to really slow gameplay, and this game already has some fun, long gameplay, but making it even slower just feels too slow. So shield, we're slowing down the shield so that the game itself can be faster, and also just added on cost to it so that so that the discard pile really feels like a relevant resource, which I think it's going to be very interesting to just see the discard pile being a resource. It's really focused on defense specifically, and just how can that be built out, because I really think you should have consistent resource conversions. That's another element of this, once again kind of trying to reduce that kind of luck feel. And then you can see kind of here the entire image for this is Stream of Souls. Stream of Souls I thought just needed to be eroded because it was too powerful and gets into a really weird game state. So instead I'm thinking you'll just add a creature to your hand instead of playing it for free. And that I think is also just a more strategically interesting effect, because you have to actually consider do I want this cheap card or this expensive card, right? And also it doesn't just give you permanent defense. I think that was the issue with it originally, is just that. But also, maybe eventually it might be a card to just try banning and replacing with something else. But for now I want to just try a few things with it. So right now I'm thinking that instead of playing a creature from your discard pile, it just adds a creature to your hand each turn. I also want to just take a look at the rules. I am going to add some rule errata, because it's nothing major, but it's just I thought that there were just a few things that needed to be patched a little bit. There wasn't really an explanation of what would happen in certain cases. So one is I want to make a hand limit. So if you have more than 7 cards in your hand at the end of your turn, you put the excess cards on the bottom of your deck. It's just kind of a way to avoid having deck out happen all the time, so that you can really play big draw cards, and at the same time you're not going to just have an overwhelming amount of cards in hand, or really just auto win because you played a ton of drawing. And it just means that there isn't like this kind of slow game state of like people going back and forth, ace card causing to draw like crazy hand sizes and stuff. I think 7 is a very reasonable amount, and honestly, it could have even been like 8 or 9. But I just wanted to prevent the game from all of a sudden being just about like how much can you draw, because that's not really in the spirit of the game. And then the other thing is, this was kind of always how things were intended to be, but I just realized it was never a rule, that you could only actually have 6 techs in your deck. Obviously, before the new set, that wasn't an issue because there were only 6 techs that you could feasibly have in your deck. But I think with the new techs, I don't want it to be like, oh, you now run 12 techs, right? It's going to be like, you have 6 techs in your deck. This is something that might get rethought eventually. I do want to have like freedom for players in terms of how their deck is built, but in order to keep that freedom, I think sometimes it's important to just like limit certain things so that people aren't just like limited by having a deck full of staples. So this way you aren't going to be like really disabled in your deck building by like running tons of techs. I don't think it's really that strategically optimal to run more than 6 techs anyway, but I think this is just a good way to keep things like that for a little bit, but we'll see. It might get changed. All these kind of erratas that I showed you in this video might get changed, but they're just kind of ideas I have. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about it in the comments. See you in the next one.